What's up, guys? One more video on day 3 right guards, and then tomorrow we are moving on to a new position. We're kicking it off with Asim Richards of the Tar Heels. North Carolina, 22 years old, 6'4", 309 pounds, although he played a lot heavier. I think he played at like 325. 34-inch arms, pretty long, 10-inch hands. Didn't really do anything at the combine. The only thing I could find on him was a 5-second 40 time, which I believe was estimated. So I don't have his measurables really, but that's the best I can do. Couple of big boards have him going in like the late 5th, early 6th. The aggregate says he's going to go around the early 7th. So I think you're looking at something in that range. He's going to be like maybe a 6th round pick overall, if I had to guess. Graded out okay in 2022, not stellar, not really good graded, not really graded well as a run blocker, pretty good as a pass blocker though, didn't excel in any one particular scheme, and he allowed quite a bit of QB disruption. He allowed 20 quarterback disruptions, including 3 sacks on the year. So it wasn't a great year for him. He maybe had a chance to boost his stock, and it didn't happen because he didn't play that well. However, he's still a pretty good prospect. He uses his hands well. He's very sticky once he latches onto a defender. So he's got a good understanding of how to do that kind of stuff. And that's something that is really important to pay attention to, I think, when you're talking about these interior guards. When they latch on, do they stay latched on or do they get shed too easily? Very physical player. He's got that mean streak you like to see in an offensive lineman. He's got some agility. He can climb to the second level and continue blocking. That's, if you're trying to put him into a zone scheme, I do see the skill set to make it happen at a reasonable level. And I know he's an interior offensive lineman, and the value of something like this is not that high, but his long arms do help when speedy edge rushers or pass rushers try to get to the edge around him. Like, he's able to use his arms to deter pass rushers up the gut from getting around him. Now, even though he's not that tall, he's not very good at winning the leverage battle. He plays kind of standing straight up. Needs to get a little bit lower, I think, to be able to win those leverage battles. He is a little bit slow off the snap, which causes him to be out of position sometimes. Like if the lineman he's going up against has a quarter of a second jump start, that's a problem. And Asim Richards struggles to deal with that sometimes, I think. He's not a great mirror of pass rushers. Like, he can do pretty well against speedy pass rushers because of his long arms, but he's not great at mirroring these pass rushers. And he is kind of a mediocre overall athlete. But I do think that if you're looking for offensive line depth in the later part of the draft, Richards is as good as a lot of people out there. So I would consider looking at him as a backup guard. I would consider looking at him as a backup tackle. And maybe there's some admittedly small chance of him developing to the point where he can be a starter in the NFL. I don't think it happens. I don't think his traits are good enough to where you would ever be excited about him starting. But I do see a guy who belongs in the NFL, and there is something to be said for that. If he's there in the late 5th round, I'd be okay with it. I think he may be available much later than that. Like, the aggregate currently has him as like an early-ish to mid 7th round pick. But honestly, I look at what he did at North Carolina. I look at his traits. I look at what he can do, and I say I would not mind him in the late 5th round. Okay, moving along here, we have Chandler Zavala of the NC State Wolfpack. 24 years old. This one's a little bit on the bigger side, more of a traditional right guard. 6'5", 325 pounds, 32 and 3/4 inch arms, 10 and 5 3/8 inch hands. The only thing I could find on him was a 40 time, 5'28", which, I mean, for his size is okay. PFF likes him a lot. They have him in the late 4th, early 5th. Most of the other big boards don't have him, and the ones that do have him in the 7th. The aggregate actually has him around like the 6th, which seems like a reasonable expectation to me. His grades in 2022 were actually nice. 86.5 as a pass protector, 73.4 with the run, and he graded out over a 79 in zone. And he allowed all of 4 quarterback disruptions this year. So really positive results from him at NC State in 2022. And I think he's going to parlay that into a little bit of draft credibility here. He's got the power to open up holes and gap, and he's got the agility to move around, get to the second level, peel around to the other side of the offensive line, get to that second level and start laying blocks. So he's a versatile player. I think he's got the strength to bully, and he's got the agility to play in space. So whatever system you're running, I think he can add a little bit of value here. He's got a good understanding of hitting the right angles when he's in space, understanding I need to get here so I can land this block at this point and allow my running back to be sprung for a big play. He's also a smart player. He works well amid chaos. Like when there's a lot of stuff going around, it seems like he has a pretty good head on his shoulders of knowing where he needs to be and understanding where he has to get to. Got a nice low center of gravity, even though he's a bigger guy, 6'5". He gets low, and he's going to win leverage battles because of it. His lateral movement is a plus when he's moving from side to side trying to mirror, so he's got those skills as well. So I actually found myself liking Zavala quite a bit. The main issues with him would be his latch. His hands are a little bit weak. He latches on and then immediately gets thrown off sometimes. Needs to learn how to use his hands a little bit better. And his anchor can be a little bit weak. When he's dealing with a bull rush, sometimes he gets pushed back. For a guy his size, that shouldn't be happening so much. So hopefully he can get that sorted out once he gets to the NFL if he wants to become more of a full-time player. But again, like this guy is just another example of why I don't want to spend a high pick on a right guard. I look at this guy and I go, with a little bit of development, I think this guy can be a really nice right guard for us. And I can get him in maybe the second half of day 3. Yeah, I'm not going to be looking to spend a day 1 or even an early day 2 pick on anybody at this position, because there are guys like Chandler Zavala almost every year. This guy is scheme appropriate. He's got a lot of positive traits to him. He's got flexibility. He might even end up doing some left guard stuff, even though he's a bigger guy. I just look at a guy like Chandler Zavala, and I think to myself, yeah, Osiris Torrance is a lot better, but how am I spending a first-round pick on him when I can get this guy in maybe the 6th round? Like, I would take him in the 5th round and think he's worth it, honestly. I would. But I don't think you're going to even have to. I think he'll be there in the 6th round, and you're going to come away from it thinking that is a future starter. Maybe not a year 1 starter, but that is a future starter who provides, at the bare minimum, quality depth going forward. One more right guard, and we're going to wrap it up. It's Atonio Mafi of UCLA, another UCLA guard, 22 years old. This is a big guy. This is probably the biggest guy we've looked at in this positional series. 6'4", almost 340 pounds. He started out as a nose tackle, and you can see why. 32 and 5/8 inch arms, 10 and 3/8 inch hands. Ran a very slow 40, 5.35. 21 bench press reps, which you kind of want a little bit more from a guy this big with relatively short arms. But, yeah, I mean, it's a combine in fairness, right? Like, the stuff that matters with Mafi is once he gets on a football field, he just swallows people whole. And most of the big boards have him getting drafted around the 5th, 6th, 7th round. The aggregate actually has him barely getting drafted, though. So there's a possibility you end up with Mafi in maybe as late as round number 7, I would say. But really, I think he's going to go sometime in the 6th. He graded out quite well in 2022, really good as a run blocker in particular, and actually pretty effective in zone, which is surprising. Now, he gave up quite a bit of hits on his quarterback, DTR, so that's a little bit intimidating, but it's important to understand what Atonio is. He's a massive and powerful man. He's built very wide, he's got great mass, and he combines that, and I do want to say this because I am going to say some negative things about him shortly. He can hit moving targets surprisingly well. You get him in space, you get him to the second level, he does okay. He's not bad. He swallows up bull rushes whole. Like, you're not going to bull rush this guy. His anchor is too strong. He opens up big holes in the run game. He's got the leg drive to push guys out of the gap and allow the running back clearance through. He's good at maintaining his balance when he's engaged. It's hard to get around him. Even though he's a little bit slow and doesn't have good lateral movement, it's hard to get around him because his body is so wide. It's like he takes up the whole gap. It's like he takes up 3 gaps at once. It's really like one of those guys who wears 2 watches because his body spans 2 different time zones. He's got that mean streak you want to see in an offensive lineman. It's a lot of stuff to like. Now, he does have a problem with leverage, which is something he's really going to have to work on because I think him winning leverage is going to be very important to him becoming a good NFL player. He's slow and ineffective when asked to move around, even though, like I said, you get him to the second level, he's actually pretty good at hitting moving targets, but you have to actually get him to the second level, and he is slow in those situations. Like running backs are not going to wait for Mafi to get into position because he's going to take forever. And he does need to learn how to use his hands better in terms of his latch, in terms of where he positions them, stuff like that. Technique things that should come to him over time. He's only 22. So he's not a great fit, but I feel like there's a decent player in here somewhere. And at a certain point, the value becomes good. Like, to me, this guy is like a late 5th, early 6th pick. So if he's there in the 7th round and nobody's taking him, yeah, I'll take him, knowing that he's not a perfect fit for what I'm trying to do. I think the value's good. And if I feel like he's going to belong in the NFL in some capacity, then he's definitely worth a 7th round pick no matter what scheme I'm running. So Mafi, look, I'm not going to sit here and tell you that he's anywhere near the top right guards in this class, like Avila and Torrance. He's not. But I feel like if I can get a guy like this in the 7th, why the heck am I spending a 1st round pick on Torrance? What's the damn difference? Kind of a weird way to look at things, but that is how I tend to look at things at the right guard position where you don't have many difference makers. All right, see you guys later, Go Hawks. We're moving on to a new position tomorrow. It's going to be a big one. See you guys soon.